Hello, welcome to this recap video of round 2 of season 9 from the Crazyhouse Teamleague. Like I did in the previous video, I'm gonna look at my two games with FIDE Master zyxon, and as an addition I have put some puzzles and positions in the study for you as well to look at on your own, with some comments provided, so you get an explanation through the comments. I'm not going to look at them in this video, but you can go through them on your own, and if you don't get anything, you can ask here in the lichess chat. Alright, first up it's zyxon with the white pieces. He played e4 and I responded with knight f6, and we got knight e2, which is not the most common move. Knight f3 and knight c3, d4 are more common, but he wants to reroute his knight to f4, play d4 and play knight c3 and pressure the d5 pawn like that. So I responded with d4 to disrupt his plan of development, knight c3 and knight f4. He played knight f4 anyway, we developed, and here he played bishop e2. He could have played bishop c4 and then d3, but then maybe bishop e4 ideas get strong counterplay for black. And here I played the move queen d6. Why didn't play bishop d6? Because then he can play knight h5. I have to play rook g8, which gives away my right of castling, or I have to castle to cover the pawn. And here this should be fine for black, but you can already see that this bishop is aimed here. This knight might sacrifice itself on g7. It just gets very awkward very quickly. So I decided to play queen d6 and leave the bishop here defending, not allowing any knight h5 or making it less forceful. d3 was played. Decided to kick the knight. Was not necessary to do this. Probably it's better to keep the pawn in hand and be more flexible, but then again the center gets really nice, so I thought it was fine. Here we get bishop f5. He castles and I castle long, and we get a very aggressive game. My plan is to push the pawns all the way, basically. Favorably, I would like either h4, g3 ideas later on, or just h3 ideas with this one. He gets knight g3 in, kicks my bishop back, attacks the queen, and here I had a decision to make whether I wanted to keep the queen here or I had to move the queen here. I went to c5. If I went to d7, probably bishop g4 is annoying. h5 is not really possible. You can even go here. Because I don't have any pawns to harass his king any further, he gets now maybe some initiative. And I thought, let's put the queen on c5. It can also be useful in the defense here of white's pawn storm later on. So a3 was played to push b4, obviously, and now it's just, okay, you push on my king, I'm gonna push on your king, opposite side castling. It's basically the same principle as in chess. You do, you attack me on my side, I attack you on your side. So h5, h4. He could have played something else to prevent this h5, h4 idea by me, and that is knight h4. The computer likes to play b4 first, which is sensible because then the queen gets kicked back, so it doesn't really matter, and you develop your knight from b1 to c4 via d2, and the queen is getting under attack. And since I don't have any pawns to drop on g5 to kick the knight back with tempo and then play h4, white should be fine. But alright, he didn't play that. He played h5 here. He played h4, I mean. Bishop takes f5 happened, knight takes f5, g6, and here you see getting ready to kick the knight back. Here we get b4 anyway, queen b6, knight g3. And now I'm gonna push the pawn, give this pawn up to open up some lines versus the white king. He grabs the pawn. I grab this pawn. He plays bishop at h3, which seems to be a nice move. and it blocks the advancement of the pawn. It checks the king. If I block, it makes me waste material. So just go king b8, and the king is also safe from any rook drops in the corner later on. So king b8 seems like a fine move. He went pawn at h2 to prevent stuff happening on g3. Probably he could have gotten away with just taking this pawn, and maybe go for knight d7. Maybe try to move the knight in some situations to d5, and just use the fact that black doesn't have that much going on in his pocket. But it's very double-edged to allow stuff like pawn at g3 and pawn at e3. So I understand why he played pawn at h2. So g3 is now covered, so I went for the other one. Now he took the pawn. He takes f2, and he went king h1 and says, okay, I dropped this pawn here to avoid knight at g3. And you're gonna need some time to attack my king now. So bishop g7, connect the rooks, kick the knight. Knight went to e4, very nice square, where it can jump into the attack but also helps defending. So now I try to figure out what I need to do here. I think the light squares are very, very nicely covered. So my plan should be to open up this file and maybe sacrifice on h3. So that's why I went for at g3. I can trade here, then I can play maybe for knight at g3, and I can take there, and then I can try to do something about this light square defense he has going on. He took the pawn. Probably it was better to ignore this and just defend with this knight and play for at c5 and try something like bishop g6 and go for attack on c7. But he did give up a piece here, and it's not so easy for him to get through, but at least there's something going on the dark squares here around my king. Pawns can land on d6 again or on b6, and it's going to be awkward, I think. For black, he has some defending to do, and he's still not very far with his plan, which I was explaining earlier. So now I got what I wanted. I got the open h file. So I took the pawn back. He went knight takes g3, and here I played a nice deflection move. I played at b2 because the bishop is covering some important squares here. The bishop is covering the knight drops on f4 or e3, but it's also covering maybe a pawn drop on h6 at an annoying moment. So I took it. I took on h3, and here I went for the forcing idea, bishop at g2, and if he takes, I have knight e3, winning the queen, right? But the other way around, it seems to be much stronger, because now I'm threatening bishop here, and I'm also threatening to take the queen. And here the best move according to the computer is rook at g2. You cannot take this pawn, because then I take the queen, and I get bishop at e1, and I chop away the defensive pieces around white's king, and black is clearly better here. So rook at g2 seems to be the best move, but then just take the queen and try to capitalize on your material advantage. It's not that easy still, but ideas like bishop at e3 or bishop at f4 to do something on the dark squares, maybe even bring your rook out on a good day. So I played bishop at g2 instead, went for the wrong order, but I got a queen anyway. And here I need more material, so I took the pawn, and it was the correct move. And here it's a very hard move to see, but black is threatening stuff like this to grab more material with check. Queen f6 is an annoying idea, as we'll see later on. And the best move apparently was king g1 to just sidestep everything, and it's a very unclear position still. But white has a lot of pieces in hand, and if he can get the time to use them, he's probably doing all right. Bishops here, you can imagine a bishop here, and maybe a knight here, and then some stuff happening around black's king. But he went at e7 for the direct counterplay, and here black was clearly better. And I found the right concept. I went queen at h2, cutting off a lot of squares for the king to retreat to. He gets rook at g2, but I can deflect the king away from the rook. During the I saw later on in the live stream from Pepe that knight takes d3 was suggested to grab an extra pawn, and it's probably a good idea to grab that extra pawn. It gets you some more prospects of getting the king out later on. But I went for at e3 immediately. King f3 was played, and here I played queen f6. So now you see the power of the ideas with the king still being on f2 instead of going king g1. And here he played knight at f5, and when I was thinking about this, I was thinking queen takes f5 must be good. But I didn't go for it somehow. 30 seconds left and I thought queen takes g3. Maybe I thought he had to take with the rook and then I can take the knight. But he just went king takes g3 and now I'm suddenly losing the game. Or at least worse. What I should have done, there are some pretty lines here. I'll show some sample lines. He has to take the knight otherwise he has to block here or go here, and then I can take this rook. You can imagine that being made very quickly. So he has to take. The key move here is e4 to vacate the square for the knight. Like this, knight e5, and I'm just gonna go through a sample line. Well, I can do other stuff here, but basically it's force made. Knight d3 or pawn d3 to get the knight to d3 later on. Now very nice deflection tactic again. If you take with the rook, there is queen takes f2 mate, so he has to take with the king, and now the knight takes on d3. The king has to go back. You take the queen. He has to take with the rook. There's no way to run for the king, and the queen mates like this, and the knights are doing the other job of defending the queen and the only escape square. Another pretty line for black here was queen takes g2, knight at h2 to lure the king further up, bishop f6, at g5, take. If you take it, there's rook at g6 and the king has to go back to the h file and it's going to be mate with two rooks there. So apparently king h5 and bishop takes e7, and I didn't read the computer run fully, but black is clearly better here, and maybe there's already forced mate in the position without even this check. Just take the pawn. This is coming, pawn at g6 ideas with another rook. So it's looking to be a very nice game for black in this position. But I didn't do that. I took on g3, so the game continued. Rook g8 came. I played some weird moves around this king to create chances. And here he promoted to a queen and he missed checkmate here. Not realizing this was a pawn. You could just sacrifice it. If I take with the king, there's queen at d8. And if I take with the queen, there's pawn at d7. Very nice deflection tactic again. If I take it, rook on the back rank, and I don't have any blockers left. But he forgot about this being a pawn later on as well. And you have to imagine he's in time trouble, and so am I. So just gonna skip ahead a bit. And again, here we have the point that again he can take this and then drop a piece on the back rank and just mate me because I don't get any blockers from this because it's only a pawn, and I just have to move the king to d7 and the king gets mated very easily. All these pieces in hand. He tried at d7, but now the game is actually weirdly enough drawn. This is all forced. As if you take with the rook, there's rook at h2. So here. If you don't take, I get the knight for free, and then I'm winning, so he has to take. And here, apparently, there's a very funny draw line. King g2, rook at g1. Don't take the pawn, because then I can take the knight with check and mate you. Rook g3. Now you take rook e3. Now you only can take the pawn. If you go here, I get to take this with check again with the rook, and then apparently it's mate again. Now I grab another pawn. Look at this knight from d3. knight b4 to d3 move. It's a nice team in this game. And black has to go for the perpetual here, and white also has to go for the perpetual. He goes here. I take the knight with check, and this is a forcing mate in 7 moves. You can figure it out yourself if you want to. I think the starting blockading move is something like this. But so he blundered with this, and now it's rook at e2. Take a piece with check while attacking, and very nice knight drop checkmates the game. Okay, let's go to the second one. I had the white pieces here with a relatively normal opening. He went for sort of the same idea, putting the knight on f5 and the knight on c6 to pressure the d4 point, but then with colors reversed. And here I went for knight b5, which is a classic idea to play against this setup, to trade this bishop off and then try to prove that the center of black is nice, but you can attack it. You can attack from the side. I went c3 to give d4 some more firepower. And here knight ce7 probably is a slight mistake, because I can play g4 now. And the knight has nowhere to go except here, but then the king side gets shattered. It's not so pleasant. Bishop at f6 may come with g5 to follow. So he sacrifices a piece. I play f6 in between to just open up the g file for my rook later on, which proved to be a good idea. f6 is the top move by the computer, I believe. But here I went wrong. Rook g1 to open up the g file. He did the same, but here I had to go king h1. Later on, this rook can help. The queen's now also connected with the g1 rook. The only thing is the bishop has to move. Just have to watch out for pawns drop here, not being too dangerous, or any knight takes f2 later on, something like that. That's basically what I have to do with the king in the corner. But aside from that, the king is much better in the corner than it is on f1. As zyxon very nicely proved, because he does have the connection going on. So when bishop at h3 to prevent bishop at h3 by him, he traded again. I missed the idea before, so I'm also going to miss it here. I just have to take and go to h1 again. Something like this can happen, and rook at g2 and complete control for white. I took with a knight, and now he played bishop at e4 and got the stuff on c2 happening maybe, and on g2. White is still pretty much doing fine. I played knight at h6 to create some counterplay on f7, and if he takes, I get a very nice control of g7. He played at g2, and here apparently, but this is, even though I know now that this is a good move, I should have played rook at g3. I still find it very scary. I take on f7, I take the queen, and apparently white is not mated here. Bishop here, king has to go here, and something like this. There's knight e6 apparently, and the king just gets safe on this h file, h4, h3, and then counterattack happens. So black has to defend, and white is winning. But it's I hope you understand. I didn't go for that. I went king f1. Bishop at g2 happened, king e1, and now he took the knight, and that gave me some moment in. But now it's also a nice time to look at the clocks. He played very quickly, and I was spending a lot of time this game trying to figure out a way to get the win, get 2-0 here in the match, because I felt his attack was threatening, but it wasn't winning, so I had to figure out a lot of stuff. But here I found this at g7 idea, played this pretty quickly. Bishop takes and bishop g7, pick up the rook, and later on try something on the back rank. Bishop at h4, I shouldn't have been scared of takes f2. I should just go rook at f8 here, bishop takes, take everything, and play rook at e8, and now he has to sack his queen, and my knight gets in, and white is completely winning again. But I was giving him more credit than I should have, and I played rook at g4, defending some squares around my king. And then next move I decided to give it up for bishop at f8, I guess. But for some reason I decided to play queen a4 first to cut off this square. And I'm going to blitz through these moves a bit because I just want to show you one more position from this game. Because, well, you can check with the computer and analyze this game if you want, but in my case it was only 20 seconds left most of the time, so I didn't have time to go into deep calculation. It was just playing on my intuition. He's counterattacking, I'm defending, I'm going upwards to try to take the knight somehow. If I go back, he probably drops the rooks and has a nice attack. And here I missed a mate with knight at c6 with the clearance team. Queen at d6 comes if you take. He has to go here, queen d8. So he takes the bishop, but now bishop at f8. And a rook at g8 to lure the king to g8. And queen at g7 in the end wins the game. I didn't play that. I played something else. I played knight at f8. But that gave my opponent just enough. And here I probably still have some chances with king f4 and some weird king walk, but I just took the knight and didn't realize rook at h4 was checkmating one. So that's how the game ended, in a vast time trouble. Again, some nice ideas in this game, but not enough in the end for me to win this one after missing a checkmate here, which I should have seen probably. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this quick analysis. Do check out the puzzles in the other games. This is, for example, an analysis of a game with some understanding comments on variants only, but this one is a puzzle already. So check it out. Make sure to leave something in the chat or give the study a heart if you liked what you see. And I will make another video on this because next week there is again going to be a match. I'm going to play the finisher on Monday, if I'm not mistaken, or Tuesday. Let's check. Tuesday 1 p.m. Central European time. So you can check in live or you can wait for the video. It will probably be there and at the end of next week or the week after. But stay tuned for that one. See you next time.